faith is to know our existence. Guru Purnima is a day which is dedicated to the Satguru each year. It is considered to be the day when we find our own nature as fullness. Many spiritual men disguise themselves as saints or sages, but none can disguise himself as Paramatman, since it is by definition without form and attributes. We must know that Paramatman does not even have a body for wearing a disguise and does not need a costume of any kind. The Satguru is the same principle as Paramatman. The Satguru cannot be grasped by consciousness, as he is beyond the known and the knowable. Only those who have intense faith in the Satguru and repeatedly reflect upon the words of the Master by chanting his mantra, whose hearts have been lit up due to identification with the infinite principle, can comprehend the Satguru. But even they cannot describe the Guru's nature. Can a dhow made of salt attempting to fathom the depth of the ocean ever succeed in doing so? Or will it remain separate from the ocean? Actions in this world that depend upon the knowingness will perish, as they change all the time. Guru Bhakti or devotion to Guru does not mean veneration of a person having a body. The true Guru is without form and is immaculate. Establishing in this understanding and living for self-realization is true Guru Bhakti. Have a firm belief in your own consciousness in whose presence all doubts vanish. Ask yourself how such an elegant human body that was not made by you was born from a single cell. Of course, it's all a spontaneous occurrence, and you must be at its root. It is Maya that easily accepts ignorance about the self. The world is vast, but how are we related with that? Know that the world is because of your knowingness. Consciousness is created since you are, and you are aware of it. This is nothing but self-love. Everyone worships that knowingness. That knowledge manifests within each of us. Taking that to be an individual has caused trouble for us. Worship your true form, the Atman, and you will know that the ultimate peace and happiness have always been within you. It is spontaneously available and needs no effort to produce it. A human body is food for a funeral pyre. Fire can burn your body to ashes, but it can never harm you. Only when we know of our true nature, we can negate the false manifestation that is seen and know that we are beyond whatever can be seen. Our vision depends upon our faith in existence. Identification of consciousness with the body appears to make the self impure, though in reality it is ever pure and immaculate. Our belief or disbelief in consciousness is in perfect order. The self is always pure and perfect. The world is in our knowingness. Those who discriminate between right and wrong suffer the least. Svadharma, or knowing one's own true nature, is right. Cognizing one's own indwelling Atman is Swarupa Dharma. Know that, and your agony will be reduced. In fact, the one who has cognized his Atman is not affected by the worldly miseries. Just as rays of light spread in every direction, the world experience spreads on all sides due to our knowingness. Consciousness that manifests in all life forms, from an ant to a human being, is our nature. Different bodies appear to be separate from each other, but pure awareness is undivided. Just as infinite space cannot be torn into pieces, universal consciousness cannot be segregated into individual beings. It is indivisible, and that is your nature. When nutrients that sustain your life are depleted, Atman remains dormant, like fire that has been put out but is never totally extinguished. Just as a bee sucks a single drop of nectar from a flower and nothing more, a true devotee of Lord Sri Hari sips only jnana, or the essence of this teaching. His attention is always on consciousness, and with that, he becomes pure and unborn and receives liberation. Consciousness becomes one with his attention, and his attention never departs from his consciousness. Chanting a mantra is said to be important. While chanting, pay attention to the source of knowingness, and little else remains to be done. Your existence is consciousness. For Parabrahman, the universe and everything that happens in it is unreal. Who is it then that finds it to be real? Only the ones who are firmly rooted in body awareness. The needs that arise due to desires and aspirations make this world a reality. Whatever you do, the worldly life continues, but it is as unreal as the child of a barren woman. It seems as if this world has sprung up from water. All primordial life was created in water. Even to this day, water sustains life on earth. You have the plants and vegetation only where there is water. This sattva, or the essence of the food that is produced, makes consciousness possible. When this food dries up, consciousness disappears. The world is always accompanied by consciousness. We may have various names, but we are always consciousness. When we know Brahman, we see this mundane existence as temporary. Our consciousness and the knowledge of Brahman depends upon the 5 elements. Hence, all that is basically false. So there is no cause to grieve when what was false now turns out to also be untrue. There is no self-awareness in deep sleep. The self-awareness of the waking or dream state has become a cause of grief. From self-awareness arises the falsehood of the waking life. I am just a witness to this strange phenomenon and do not experience being part of it. Our consciousness is Bhagavan. What is it that makes us behave the way we do in our life? It is consciousness, which is unavoidable and is the only one that truly acts in this world, and not you or me. Consciousness appears unknowingly, and it is the nectar of the Lord's feet. Knowing the reason for this consciousness is like drinking that nectar. Such a person is freed from the influence of mind. Consciousness is throughout the whole of existence. It is present in every living being as the feeling, I am. Our ability to write or perform any activity is due to our knowledge that we are. To understand this, one must sacrifice the sense of being the individual that we incorrectly consider ourselves to be. The world and its activities exist inside and outside of our knowingness. These activities happen due to 5 elements, 3 gunas, and prakriti and purusha, making a 10-folded affair. A true devotee of the Lord is the one who has drunk the nectar of the Lord's feet. To be free from the concept of death, one must have complete control of the mind. There are 4 kinds of speech that originate from the Lord's feet, With what kind of ink could you write the words I am? It is the ink Shayi on which Lord Sheshashayi Vishnu rests over the snake Shesha. When we drink the nectar of the Lord's feet, we notice that the empty chatter of our mind is all false. That's the victory of our Atman. The bliss that follows is independent of any external source, unlike the pleasures experienced through our senses. Those longing for the true bliss of the self must seek the root of their existence. Water rising from a fountain rises into the air and then falls back to the ground. In the same way, our consciousness falls back to its source and no longer supports this drama of the world. Direct your attention to what is before concepts. What is it that our sense organs need? They love our consciousness. Consciousness that was previously unknown is now known. It has brought self-awareness to the body that supports it, and the universe appears as a result. The 11 sense organs, namely the 5 organs of knowledge, the 5 of action, and the mind, all of these function for the sake of consciousness. This is why, as each day passes, this love to exist keeps growing. This consciousness or self-love is like the form of Lord Krishna, and our mental modifications are the gopis or milkmaids who are devoted to Krishna, who is the consciousness. Those who saw Krishna became aware of his glory and merged into him. This implies that they were totally absorbed in consciousness. When one's love for Krishna becomes great, one gradually loses interest in the sense objects and realizes the true nature of Krishna, which is the self. One becomes convinced that one's own true nature is none other than Krishna. Pay attention to what is prior to concepts. What you see effortlessly when the eyes are closed is none other than Krishna. Due to the dark complexion, he is known as Ghanshayam or Savalaram, which means the dark one. Nothing can happen in his absence. Krishna enjoys everything and yet remains aloof from all activities. He stands for the real and for the so-called rest. If he is not seen, there is no seeing. What you see with open eyes is the world, but when they are closed, what you behold is Krishna. This is seeing the dark complexion Krishna without actually looking. Pause right there and merge into him. Your experience will be based on your conviction. One receives experience based upon his conviction. But once you notice him, seeing continues in spite of the external disturbances. In the Sanskrit alphabet, the word Shri is the first letter and is considered most sacred. Therefore, it is a prefix added to all holy names such as Shri Krishna. He is seen as that which is prior to everything, and that is self-knowledge. Meet him first before you do anything. The one who continuously listens to the glory of Krishna's greatness increasingly loves only him. Such a lover of the Lord doesn't care much about public recognition or honor, for in Krishna he finds complete fulfillment. Krishna shines in full glory within those who see him as their own self. The seer in them becomes the seen. Then the need to consult anyone else for self-knowledge is finished. Until then, follow your guru's words and merge into Ghanshayam, the dark complexion one. Behold him with closed eyes. Seek solitude with consciousness. There is no trace of ego or the sense of being in a person who has cognized his own true nature. Such a person has recognized his oneness with all living beings, movable and immovable. He or she knows that consciousness is the substratum. The nature of this knowingness, or the sense of being, is such that one cannot hold on to it indefinitely or renounce it when one desires. When the body identification goes, along with the desires, what remains is pure knowingness. The process of waking up from deep sleep and going back to it is spontaneous and needs no effort, physical or intellectual. Just as the sense of being rises from the self, when this knowingness is gone, one's swarupa, or one's true nature, continues to exist. Even when knowingness contains everything, it still intrinsically does not experience any feeling of pleasure or pain. However, only when this knowingness assumes the role of an entity or a conscious living person, it experiences pleasure and pain. The one who knows his consciousness does not identify with the person that he or she is supposed to be. On the other hand, the knower of consciousness is beyond the feelings of pleasure and pain. Such a knower witnesses everything without any desire or effort. Whatever we can witness doesn't remain, and it vanishes in due course. You can call him a satguru, or the one who does not need this knowingness. The knower of knowingness remains unknown to knowingness. In knowingness, the world along with our body appears. With the experience of a body, experiences of pleasure and pain happen. A jnani has no experience of entering into or coming out of samadhi. His true nature is not aware of itself. He is in a state called vijnana, that which is beyond all. Knowingness is a product of the nature of the five elements. It is called tirtha, or the revered one. That may be the reason why we address our parents as tirtharup. Similarly, the father's brother is addressed as tirtha swarupa. Lord's names, Keshav and Vaman, are holy and they are worshipped. In the absence of the germination of food juices, the absolute which is totally free and complete prevails. Purna, or the self, which is complete, lacks knowledge of its own existence. Hence, Brahmanyana, or the knowledge of Brahman, is still in the realm of ignorance. But the knower knows it indirectly. Now I completely understand how I came to be and how I currently am, without the need for any other support, without anyone else being present. Until an experience is known, the desire for acquiring it doesn't arise. But the moment you come to know about it, a desire arises. Therefore, knowingness is loved and desired only after it makes its appearance. The world out there which is seen by you is due to this knowingness. For jnani, this world is nothing but his knowingness. Remain with this knowingness in isolation. Understand that your knowingness is all-pervading and is not limited to the individual that you call me. Then the knowingness will not be limited to me, but will become the universal consciousness, the omnipresent I. This knowingness that is limited will not remain forever and vanishes eventually. Aum implies your being present. When we chant a mantra like Om Shiv, we realize our own presence. Om means presence. In Marathi, the word Shiv implies touch. But the knowledge that we are untouched by the body dawns upon us. It is like killing the demon known as Shankashur, or the demon of doubt. Like blowing the conch of Lord Shiva, it is announcing a victory. This sound sanctifies the universe. These two words of self-knowledge that come from the sages and transform everyone who hears them. The eternal doubter who doubts who am I is permanently eradicated by the satguru. Henceforth this body is run by the Lord, who killed this demon of doubt. His self or awareness is manifested in me as the waking state of consciousness which appears as the world. Live with this conviction, and that is true awakening to truth. Then others come to worship your name and form as the Lord. No one needs to ask others about what knowingness is. And the jnana is never dependent on whatever appears from knowingness. Knowingness is the force that spontaneously runs the universe and sustains all life within it. That is the very nature of knowingness. God is our confidence of being. Praise Parabrahman by offering him your identity. The one who meets Parabrahman becomes Parabrahman. Knowing God is to become God. It is to completely abandon the notion of being anything other than God. A true seeker of Parabrahman surrenders his identity to God, and he becomes the same as God by seeing his true nature. He develops certainty of being the self. Such a one goes beyond remembering or forgetting the self. Everything else is dropped. Due to the mischief of our minds, we visualize and experience the misery or birth in this world. The body, the world outside, and the life experience are merely appearances that do not exist in reality. What exists in reality is our true nature. You cognize and feel the one within yourselves. It is that whom we wanted to meet and beg for grace. His existence becomes yours, and yours his. When you surrender yourself totally to God, you succeed, because this is the biggest surrender that can be made. Cognition of one's true existence is God, and nothing else. Difference between saguna and nirguna vanishes. I have stopped praying to Saguna Brahman or God with attributes, but this method of worship is not ready to leave me. In this world, the most difficult thing is to meet a satguru and to follow him. I merged with the words of the Master and was liberated. For the disciple of a guru, there is no need for any other God. Such a person is not described by the letters in his name, nor does he consider himself as a body. Before you leave the body, identify with yourself. Then you will not experience death. Do not confuse the myth of karma with the subject of self-realization. For once, focus your total attention on self-knowledge. Then the difference between saguna and nirguna vanishes. You will have achieved the purpose of human birth. Though the experience of grief does not spare anyone, the inner peace of the sage is undisturbed. Your biggest accomplishments and qualifications are nothing but ignorance. Do not pollute self-knowledge with the matters of mind and body. Consciousness is unlimited. How can it contain any measure of misery or happiness? Does the ocean get filled or depleted with the movement of the waves? The body is only the food of consciousness. Put all your faith in self-knowledge. Establish in self-knowledge by practice. The one who responds to his name being called is Shiva, or the Lord of the universe. Our consciousness is the proof of the existence of the Lord. That which identifies and lives as the body is Jiva, and that which knows its true nature as consciousness is Shiva. Both are one and the same. The apparent difference is due to identification with the body. The world and Shiva are not different. By practicing, you get established in this knowledge and know it as a fact. Right now you identify yourself as a body, and hence the fear of death persists. Consciousness should know itself as consciousness. Your consciousness is of the nature of Ishvara, the Lord. The one who knows this with conviction even excels Brihaspati, the mythical guru of the heavens and the Lord of knowledge. It is said that once something is donated, it should not be expected back in return. Donate your body identity to Lord Shiva, and never consider your body and mind as yours again. Then the Lord confers the lordship of identity with the universal self upon you. Such an awareness must become natural to the enlightened one, and the disciple who is thus devoted to his guru does not feel the need for any further teaching or advice from others. His erudition about self-knowledge flows from that understanding even as he remains in oneness with the Absolute. Yoga means losing your sense of being. Just as you wake up from slumber in the morning, what you see without eyes is the real image of God. Seeing that image is true waking, which makes your journey on the spiritual path effortless, and the process of living in the world tolerable. This understanding is without the use of intellect. Despite countless numbers of devastating delusions in the past, the unmanifest is not destroyed. Hence, it is my true nature. And how are you different from that? Our true nature is nothing other than what the Master says we are. The true renunciation is to know and affirm that the body is not your true nature. The one who understands this fact remains ever content. The deep blueness, which is seen when the eyes are closed, contains all the potentials for existence. When the eyes are opened, the Lord makes way for things to be seen. Things that you perceive in the outside world are perceptible only when the Lord is not in the view or when His presence is forgotten. You must pay attention to this fact. Right now, you have lost sight of yourself, which is your real nature. When you notice how you came to start missing yourself, the job is done. The Absolute witnesses your consciousness in which the world is seen. As a result, what is seen is not true, and the truth is never seen. He manifests from the essence of 5 elements. This sense of being is born in the mother's womb. Hence, it is the product of the material objects made from 5 elements. In Parabrahman, there is no sense of being. When the sense of being loses itself in meditation, there is yoga. No words remain. Wise is the one who, upon listening to these words of wisdom from the Guru, is able to get rid of his body identity. The one who has attained the ultimate self-knowledge has this unshakable conviction. Such is the highest state, called Sahajavasta, the natural state. That which exists effortlessly and eternally is one's true nature. In this true nature, there is no intelligence or imagination. You know that the dream world arises, thrives, and vanishes without use of any intelligence or imagination. The deep blue that is seen with eyes closed is not seen as such, but it is that which you behold without actually seeing. When the conviction dawns that this Ghanshayam is our true nature, all words become quiet and peaceful. Our consciousness, which we believe to be individual, is in reality an expression of Brahman. It is that same deep blue or deep black background that is seen with closed eyes. It is difficult to bear this newly dawned consciousness when it appears, since its foundation is ignorance, and ignorance detests knowledge. The world is full of concepts that all disappear in samadhi. Our nature says nothing is mine. Satchitananda, or existence, consciousness, bliss, is a stable state and is not transitory. When waking happens, the sense of being arises and actions happen which are identified with the body. A jnani realizes his existence, albeit without identification. For him, it is simply consciousness bliss, and the world is merely our experience of existence. True happiness is being yourself. That which witnesses the body is our true nature. Our consciousness contains the secret knowledge that imagines the good and the bad. This is your sense of being which writes your destiny. The mythical Chitragupta. The future has no meaning to an enlightened one. For him, everything is in perfect order and nothing can ever go wrong. Bhagavan says, I reside effortlessly in the state of Satchitananda. The knower sees the universe as part of his vision. The act of seeing or the object seen are not the knower. Knower is the witnessing consciousness, that is the seer. The appearance of consciousness is due to the self, which is referred to Jagadjeti or Jagadeti. Jaga is the world, and Deti implies stem. Just as a fruit hangs from the branch of a tree through a stem, similarly, the world hangs from our consciousness. Do not identify yourself or your belongings with the content of consciousness. In consciousness there is softness or relaxation. All our activities and the imagined actor vanish in consciousness. There was total annihilation during the great dissolution of the universe, and yet I remained unscathed. Our true nature does not allow any name and form. When the realization I am Brahman happens with conviction, one is united with the world. For my true nature is beyond all ideas. For me, even the idea that I am Brahman is a concept. True detachment is to see everything as false. When we say something is not mine, there is still one who claims this detachment. Consciousness is the foundation of everything. The one who adopts the teachings of a spiritual master is untouched by the karmas or the limiting situations that cause bondage and suffering. Such a person can only relate to consciousness. As karmas are in the realm of the three qualities, sattva guna, rajoguna, and tamoguna, we are truly not bound by them. We are not sattva or the events that happen within it. Our vision and goal is jnana, and hence whatever is perceived by us from all directions must reveal to us that we are nothing but the consciousness that witnesses everything. If a pitcher of water is poured into the ocean, it becomes the ocean itself. It does not need to traverse the length and breadth of the ocean in order to become it. Similarly, even though a jnani appears physically in front of you, he is all-pervading. He doesn't have to move around. Wherever he is Parabrahman itself. Witnessing happens while there is a sense of being in a body-mind complex. When knowingness disappears in death or sleep, there is neither a witness nor the act of witnessing. There may be infinite appearances in the manifested existence, but they are of no use for the knower of truth. Parabrahman has no desires. In the absence of consciousness, there is no question of any name or form. Once this knowledge is instilled in you, It blooms gradually as you continue stabilizing in this truth. Just as an unripe mango ripens over time, the transformation of ignorance into self-knowledge happens steadily and with patience. With faith, all the blemishes in consciousness are removed. The cause that bestowed the concept of birth and individuality disappears when a serious search is made for its origin. What made you begin this self-inquiry? It is knowingness which is the root of everything that has ever happened. This root cause is visible in different appearances and in a variety of ways to the one inquiring about its origin. But in the end it vanishes spontaneously, along with the witnessing. If the conviction of your true nature is stabilized, the feeling of existence or your sense of being is removed without a trace. The one who is without impressions is Parabrahman. The impression of existence is of primordial ignorance, the moolamaya. It entices one with a lure of happiness as long as a person is alive. Clarify all doubts about consciousness. Among the many who listen to these talks, just a few develop faith in what I say. The Guru is one who has complete knowledge of the self. The keen listeners of these talks are the true devotees of Bhagavan. A disciple performing Advaita Bhakti or non-dual devotion towards the Guru knows that by thinking on the lines of the Master, he gets to know himself. Your consciousness is your true Guru. God and your true nature, self as well. You must meditate on this Trinity as one. This bestows self-knowledge upon you. Many were born and have died, but the self remained unchanged. There is no cause for this manifestation due to which we exist. The one who understands this considers the causelessness as the great cause. In reality, this manifestation is made without a justifiable reason. To cognize this truth, you must be aware of your consciousness. Spiritual practice is to investigate your feeling of being and to erase your pre-existing doubts. Then, the knowledge of our consciousness appears unknowingly, and there is inner faith in your own self. It cannot be cultivated and arrives uninvited. It is Lord Vishnu dwelling within your being. The listener is part of Satguru's nature. Your existence and God's existence are the same. Do not listen for just survival or your well-being. You take your body as your faithful servant, but that is not the case. This body is perishable. A true listener is in oneness with the Satguru's consciousness. Your existence appears out of nothingness because you were born, and it ends in nothingness. You are beyond both. Your need of a personal God is for the daily transactions and is not for your ultimate goal in life. Your true existence does not conform with commandments of the Shastras or Scriptures. Meditate by relinquishing the concept of name and form. Of course, still continue to use the body to lead a normal life on earth. Develop deep conviction. You must remember that you are Parabrahman, as your memory of existence is due to Parabrahman. With true conviction, your consciousness must know its significance and its source. The foundation of a body is merely your concept of being a body. When that concept is dropped or negated, What remains is Parabrahman. Infirm faith depends upon the body. The word sweetness is meaningful when we are pointing to the ocean of milk, bondage, which arises due to identification with the body, must vanish of its own. Faith in one's own existence is eternal and is self-created. This awareness in one's own existence is independent of the 5 elements that constitute the world. Mind goes through millions of modifications, but the awareness or faith has remained unchanged, steady and complete. The knower of mind succeeds in all activities. The one who thinks that awareness remains only while there's a body, his faith is infirm and weak. Do not be involved in matters which are conducted by forgetting oneness with the self. The light of the full moon of awareness of self causes a tide in the ocean of my inner peace and beatitude, for I belong to the tribe of eternal awareness. No harm can ever be done to this faith. The awareness that you have, along with I amness, is just limited to your body, from head to toe. But pure awareness or faith of being is prior to this body. That alone dances in your heart as your knowingness for eternity. The one who cognizes this eternal awareness or faith of being as his or her true nature is ever immersed in the ocean of bliss. Even before you tasted the existence as your body and mind as an infant, you have enjoyed the bliss of being that pure awareness in the light of the self. That itself is the original form of God. This little divine existence then becomes Mahadeva, or the great Lord. Excitement subsides in life. On this path of self-knowledge, as one continues to receive increasing clarity and quietness in cognition of one's true nature, the involvement and excitement in mundane matters diminishes. What happens, finally? The desire to linger in this body disappears. No one knows if the body identity existed during birth. Probably not. Similarly, when the time to leave the body happens, its form will not be remembered. Of course, this happens only if you constantly ponder over the teachings of the Guru. Self-awareness is unbroken and imperishable. I do not accept or grace anyone with my attention without being convinced about his or her devotion and love. Only when I get interested in a person, he or she becomes the true aspirant. Our true conviction of existence is imperishable, but in association with the body-mind complex, it becomes divided. This conviction is beholding Ishvara without deliberately seeing. The being that is experienced by you is the experience of God. Know this as a fact. Your Atma continuously feeds and protects you. You must believe your experience to be that of Parabrahman. The experience and the experiencer are both him. Free consciousness is independent of pain and pleasure. The self does not have any likes or dislikes. As long as there is non-duality due to sattva, there is no misery or happiness. Just as the waves of the ocean fiercely crash upon each other without feeling any pain, because both are the same water in the ocean. When there is no feeling of otherness, what can result as the experience? That which does not remain with us forever is maya. Just as the waking world, deep sleep, and the dream state are all temporary, the vigor of an ignorant one is also time-bound. When the stirring of life happened, it needed sustenance, which was provided by the concept of a personal God. And that was how gods were created. We see the world due to our waking state. In the same way, the sense of being concomitantly brings about the ego and the appearance of the world. The birth of duality creates endless streams of visions. When consciousness is freed from this body, the experience of pleasure and pain vanishes. Then there is also no possibility for witnessing anything. That state is Paramatman. No one has any use of others. Finding the meaning of sattva is true spiritual practice. In any food that we consume, there is sattva. But that which is your essence is supreme consciousness. The purpose of the food is to sustain the body and to nourish it. All the positive qualities that we find are the result of sattva. Nature actively nurtures the phenomena of birth and death on earth. From a tiny ant to the largest life form, all are born and ultimately die. The mythical tales of rising up to heaven and hell are merely figments of imagination. That which is produced on earth shall perish on earth. Beyond earth there is no place for creatures that are created here. The stories you hear about afterlife are all fiction. Our sense of being, or Atma Yoga, is a result of the union of our parents. Even a jnani needs food to continue his existence with a physical form. Hence, by identifying with sattva, he feels his presence in all forms. Every happening is spontaneous and needs no intervention from human beings. No one can actually interfere in the scheme of things. Can fire resist its being lit up before it is kindled? No, it might resist after being lit. The activities of happening on earth are the work of sattva. An idol of worship is sanctified by virtue of the myth surrounding it. Like the idol of Lord Rama, is worshipped by those having read Ramayana. That's how the significance of an idol has meaning. But for that, there is no difference between an idol of worship and this cigarette lighter in my hand. When the essence that produces and sustains a life form is depleted, its story is over. Spirituality provides a state of permanent satiety, where no wants remain. The feeling of wanting is foolishness. No one needs anything from anyone. That is the ultimate of spirituality. The three attributes of sattva, rajas, and tamas personify as a human being. All that happens is due to these three qualities. Everything that you observe in all the religions is nothing but mental entertainment and conflict. That what is defined as sattva in one place may be called the great reality in another one. In a third place, it might be seen as absolute nonsense. Only invisible faith brings fulfillment. The knower of the body is yourself. For the one who knows, heaven is contained in his true nature. Avyaya means that which is never spent and will never be depleted. That into which the self or self-knowledge merges in unity is called Vijnana. The knower of ignorance, Jnana, and Vijnana is a jnani. The witness to your body is your true nature. The teachings of the satguru should become your identity and your way of living. By abiding in that truth, you become truth itself, and know what is jnana and vijnana. When the self is realized and established, what remains is vijnana. For the one who has known his true nature, his presence on earth is enough, and all his functions happen by divine will.